Welcome along, one and all, to PSGL Season 37 PSF3, powered by GT Omega. This is the the 8th round of the championship, coming from the Circuito de Hermanos Rodriguez. The Mexican Grand Prix is the main event of the evening. My name is Daka, and I'll be helping you through the action tonight. And alongside me once again, it is the delightful Ghost. How are you, sir?
Well, I could be better. A little bit of a cold I've got, but no, I'll be fine, and I'm very much looking forward to this. Mexico can be an exciting track for racing. Not necessarily the most daring overtakes happen around here most of the time. It's usually DRS down to turn one, but that doesn't mean we can't have an exciting race. And with the last two races, I mean, you wouldn't bet against PSF3 putting out an absolute blinder of a race once again.
Yep, so all with you there, but let's have a look at the action there out on the circuit as we get into qualifying then. The first car circulating on the circuit right now is Joaquin, so let's keep an eye on this man heading into the middle sector split, shifting down the gears, third gear through this second of the chicanes, turns 4, 5 and now 6, this dreadful double apex. Right-hander takes that one very nicely, and then into the higher speed stuff, flick it in to turn number 7. You can see that rear end dancing around, trying to keep it under wraps as you head through this high speed section out of turn 11 on to that low pedal once again. You can see that rear wing open as you set up the final sector of the track. This is looking pretty good so far. Low 55 to the first two sectors, then to the stadium section, locking it all up, heading into turn 13, getting the car straightened up, squirt that throttle pedal, turn it in hard, heading in to the penultimate corner. Now the final corner, turn 17, the time to beat is a 13.4 for Joaquin. So that is the marker. Let's see how the other drivers can stack up to it. CPI Fraser, the man who has been right up there the last two rounds, goes faster, and well, his old friend from Jeddah just topping that, goes fastest on a 1:13.2 so far.
Yeah, and Finley slotting in as well, just 2 tenths behind. But Coolman's first lap, the championship leader, runaway championship leader at the moment, half a second down. So he's got some improvement to do as the laps come tumbling in. But no one, according to my telemetry at the moment, is going anywhere near as fast as the top two. Frank Jashorny goes to P3, just ahead of Finley as those top four showing their mettle at the moment. Joaquin sort of in a best of the rest position, although those top two are a long way ahead of third as well. So I'm interested to see how this session is going to shake up as it goes on, because I think these first laps, especially on this kind of track in Mexico, it can be tough to get the perfect lap in. You get the first sector perfect and then you mess up somewhere else. It's that kind of track. So, yeah, interested to see, especially people like Coolman, whether they can find some improvement in the next 13 minutes.
Yeah, but at the very least he has a lap time on the board, getting that banker in so crucial. But yeah, Spicer and Fraser up there as I'm watching Raphael through the last couple of corners. We're coming towards the end of these first runs. Also, to note, we do have a couple of debutants here in this 8th round. One of them has just started a lap. That is Louis Baptiste. We'll keep an eye on his progress, see how he gets on. The other new starter who's been sitting in the pit lane to start this session is IRT Nick. So it's great to have new faces joining us on the grid. We'll see how those drivers are able to fare, because we saw with Billy last time out in Jeddah, drivers who have that raw pace are unable to make a splash from their very first entry. So keeping an eye on the progress of those two guys is going to be something to really look out for tonight.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's always good to see newbies on the grid, especially halfway through a season when the pace has sort of already established itself, and it's clear to see who the title favourites and the usual suspects towards the front of the grid are. But then a newbie comes in halfway through and really has the potential to shake things up. So yeah, Louis and Nick have a little bit to prove today, because however they perform today is how others are going to view them for the rest of the race, or the rest of the season rather, whether they'll be a threat or whether there'll be just another driver in the mid-grid. And Louis looking like perhaps in the former as he goes to P7 on his first lap in PSGL F3. A decent first showing, and Nick just starting a lap as well.
Yeah, it's a very good first impression for Louis. Actually, in the top half, all of the drivers that have went so far, right amongst the established order, RT Nick is to follow. While we're watching Nick, though, I do want to quickly cast your mind back towards last week. You mentioned Coolman, runaway championship leader, and that was bolstered by the events of the end of Jeddah. Remember, he was running in position number P3 virtually the entire race, or at least near the end of the race, where Spicer and Fraser came together. Now, Spicer was penalised for the initial contact for swiping across the nose of Fraser, and Fraser was later penalised too for cutting off our Frank Jashorny as he rejoined onto the circuit. So, yeah, very, very contrasting fortunes for some of those top drivers, and it means that Coolman moved away in the championship to a lead of 18 points, although actually the penalties did benefit his now nearest challenger in the championship, Finley, who now sits second and actually was promoted into P2 at the end of that race due to the penalties of Spicer and Fraser. Spicer and Fraser topping this session, so we know they have the pace, but they are in dire need of points at this stage. So Coolman has established himself in the last couple of rounds, but Leonardo, who's just come over the line to P3, back in after a couple of rounds off, so he'll be looking to make that impression further down the line. We are still missing Acid, but Leonardo was really that driver to throw the cat amongst the pigeons and try and get back in that title fight.
Yeah, he certainly is, and he's gone to P3 straight away on his return, so making a bit of a bounce back is going to be crucial for him at this stage, because he needs to gain some of those points back. He's currently sitting 24 behind Coolman, and with PSGL's point system, 16 for a win, 12 for second place, and 10 for third. That is quite a margin. And Finley himself 18 points behind us. Fraser goes to P1. There we go. A better lap from, I believe, last week's pole sitter. But I will say, Daka, that the newbie in Nick could be a bit of a threat here, because I did see his Sector 1 time. He ended up invalidating and came into the pits, but his Sector 1 time was purple. So he could be right up there and could do a bit of a shake-up for the top contenders, but someone who did need to improve was the championship leader Coolman, and he's done exactly that. He's gone to P5 with a much better time.
Yeah, good lap there from Coolman, and I didn't want to interrupt myself talking about last week's events, but I did pick up on that first sector time from Nick, 27.8, so that is very, very exciting, because getting into 27s is very rare in that first sector, so keep an eye on that driver. Let's see what he can do further down the line. We're getting in some of these runs in the middle phase of the session, drivers that are trying to consolidate their opening runs or improve on early errors. As I'm watching Raphael, who's tracking very nicely through the first two sectors, just a little off the apex of 13, has to reset and regather it through the last couple of corners, battling a little bit of oversteer off of Piratella, coming up towards the line, goes into position 10, 113.591, and I do think there was more time on the board given that error near the end of the lap. So Raphael, who we haven't seen much of this season, I believe there is much more to come from him as things begin to quiet down on track. Drivers are transitioning out onto the maybe second or even third runs for some of them as they get going. So Fraser on that provisional pole, Spicer right behind. It is a bit of a reset from last week's race in Jeddah, and on one lap pace at this stage in the season, it seems very difficult to match these two.
It really, really does. Last week they were head and shoulders above in qualifying, and this week it's seemingly same story. Fraser and Spicer, the class of the field on raw one-lap pace, but of course, in terms of actual racing, last week we discovered they are not infallible, far from it, as they crashed just before the final corner, and Coolman swept his way through to take P1. Nick currently by in the meantime in Sector 2, and he's gone purple again in the first sector, Daka. So he is really flying, is the new kid on the block, as it were. He's going through the S's now, and we're going to see his Sector 2 time flash up in just a couple seconds' time. Here he comes across the Sector 2 line. It's going to be a 54.9. It's not bad at all, and Nick could be up amongst those top two here through the stadium section. A couple corners to go, cutting that corner nicely on the inside. A little bit of rear locking into the last corner will cost him some time, but across the line it's a 13.4 in the end, and I think there's a lot more to come from Nick, because he definitely lost time in that final sector, and perhaps in the middle sector as well.
Welcome to PSF3, and yes, still that first sector time astonishingly fast across the board, so certainly a driver to keep your eye on in the future. Let's look further down the line though at other drivers stepping up to the plate. Fernando Shorney is heading around that third sector. Very, very aggressive on the entry into turn number 13, managing to just about gather it up, heading around that penultimate corner. Now up towards the line now, Frantic. It was P4, it is now P2. Gets into the 13.1s as well, joining Fraser in that ever-exclusive club. Spicer has bailed out of that latest lap, so there'll be no more from him. Ghost, is there anyone that is setting the timing screens alight at this time?
No one who's purple. There are a few who are improving. Among them is Sieb, currently in P14. He's coming into the final sector at the moment. There's also Chris Rebel improving in Sector 1, so he could find some time. And Ward's in 17th. He was right up there, so it's surprising to see him in 17th after his performance last week. Sieb to P7, big improvement for him, as more cars coming across the line now. I don't know if any are improving. I think there's a couple. No one's improving by a lot. Certainly no one is purple, as Chris Rebel's going to be the next to cross the line. Around the final corner, a bit of oversteer as he tries to get the power down, but he does get off that bottom spot up to P16. But he'll at least be happy that he's more in line with the pace of everyone else, because he was a long way down until that lap. But look who's just gotten themselves into second place. Karafolidis out of nowhere gets himself up there, and well, this could be a more open qualifying than we were expecting. I thought it was going to be Fraser and Spicer once again, but there could be some challenges to them today.
Yeah, that's very encouraging from Karafolidis. Fennec to Shorney also, we just saw a few seconds earlier getting into the 1:13.1. So really good progress from those guys. Let's see what the rest of the session has to offer. Wards has just come over the line. 1:13.7 is the time. I think Moikuli has just got one kicked off. No, it's just run well off the circuit at turn 3. So I don't believe that is going to be very competitive. Maybe I don't think it's even a flying lap, really. Maybe just a cool down lap. So we are still in that waiting phase towards the end of the session. Remember, collisions are off in this qualifying session. We're not going to see any slipstreaming tactics, which would normally be fairly prevalent down that gargantuan main straight. Well, the speeds you get up to are phenomenally high, so a very strong slipstream effect. I think Nick is going to be the first driver out there, followed by Leonardo. And well, Nick, if that first sector from earlier is anything to go by, the pace is there to get right in the mix. So I'm with you. The order from the last couple of rounds of Fraser, Spicer dominating in qualifying, those guys have still got plenty of potential too. Fraser is still topping this session, but it's a very exciting prospect. The times are very close, and I think you'll be seeing a lot of contenders stepping up to the plate and taking on this Hermanos Rodriguez circuit in these next 3 minutes.
Absolutely, it's so close. Less than half a second between the top 13 drivers, which is quite phenomenal. I think the big story though is Finley. He is down in 8th place, along with Kuhlmann, the top two in the championship, 7th and 8th respectively. So they have some time to find. Particularly Finley, I think, is going to be disappointed if he finishes where he is now. Nick, just about starting a lap now, so we're going to see if he can match that glorious Sector 1 time he did earlier. As everyone getting out on their final out laps now, so Nick could be in a bit of bother here with traffic, perhaps. He goes through the first 3 corners. That was mighty through there. It's no wonder he's so fast in that first sector. Here he comes. What's the time going to be? 27.8. It is 300ths down on his previous best, but it is still absolutely mighty. I'd wager the second fastest Sector 1 time of the session so far, behind his own. Into the middle sector he goes, and over to the S's. This is what can make or break a lap in this middle sector. But he's gotten it just about right so far. It's a lot easier to go through those corners on this game than it was on previous titles, I will say. And now into the stadium section, he's half a tenth up. Would get him up at least 5 places here, so that's how close it is. Into the stadium, we know he messed up that corner a little bit last time, but he gets it spot on this time. Really cuts that final corner. What a brilliant piece of driving that was. This could be very big. It's a 13.2. It's to P5, but he has established himself as a real threat to this grid.
P5 third row. Let's see how that is going to stick. Leonardo was very close behind on the track. 55-1 to the first 2 sectors. It's 500ths down on what he had earlier. Needs a good lap here. Goes 6th. Just barely ahead of Joaquin, moving up on a 1:13.349 on the session. Goes behind on the circuit. I believe that was Chris Rebel just starting a flying lap. So difficult to follow everyone out there. But CPI Fraser it is who's invalidated that lap. CPI Fraser has invalidated. Does that open the door for someone else to challenge? But it's so difficult to hook up, and it is, as we've seen, so easy to mess up and get that invalidation. Pick that up. So let's see who is going to come forth towards the end of this session. I'm trying to find someone that is near the end on a lap. Ghost, can you update me?
Raphael.
Who is flying?
Raphael comes to the line. He's P8, but no one's really setting the timesheets alight at the moment. Joaquin, perhaps he's a purple sector 2, but his sector 1 was nothing to write home about. So let's see if he can nail the stadium section. But Fraser's not going to improve, so it's all on these drivers on the track to try and beat him. Here he goes to the line, a 13.271. He does improve Joaquin, but only to P6, and no one else is purple. I'm not seeing any purple at all on the timing sheets. Finley is coming down towards the end of Sector 1. He invalidated his previous effort, so he's going to have to go on depleted ERS and worn tyres, and this could be very bad news for the man in P2 in the championship. Coolman, and he's off as well. No improvement for Coolman as he lets another driver through. So the championship leader and his closest rival both down in 7th and 8th as it stands, and it could be worse for them.
I can't see any potential out there just scrolling through the drivers. I think a lot of these final runs have gone a little bit haywire near the end of this session. So Fraser, I do believe, is going to keep this. I'm trying to find someone that has the potential to topple it, but I'm not seeing anyone at the moment. Everyone went out and before, and there's a lot of them are actually on cooldown laps. So Fraser, yeah. I do believe, unless I'm terribly mistaken, there is no one that is a threat to that 1:13.111.
The timesheets agree with you. No one is improving. That is it. A bit of an anti-climax to this qualifying session as everyone buckles under the pressure of their final runs, seemingly. I think Joaquin was among one of maybe 2 drivers to improve on their final runs. Yeah, tricky times, and well, that could be why I'm seeing spots of rain. So perhaps the track was getting cooler as the rain was getting overhead, and that's why everyone's been struggling to improve in these final runs. So that would definitely explain it. But even so, a lovely lap from Fraser when he needed to get it in, but those top 4 drivers within a tenth of each other, and Karafoulidis, the surprise name on the front row.
Yeah, and well, it was quite late in the session because a lot of those other times came in the midpoint of the session. Maybe, as you said, the track was at its fastest at that time, but Karafoulidis getting right up there. It is, though, CPI Fraser who takes away that pole position from Karafoulidis. Frank just showing a good lap, goes into 3rd place just ahead of Spicer. Next up, Nick and Joaquin, and then the championship contenders, Kuhlman and Finley, take up that 4th row on the grid. Then Leonardo, 3rd place in the championship, right behind him. Louis on debut rounds out the top 10. Behind that, you have Raphael, Sieb, Moikuli, Spyros, / Chris Rebel, Wards and Zviadek round out the grid for the Mexican Grand Prix. So there we go. Fraser takes yet another pole position. But we can now start to discuss how this race could potentially unfold. We did see rain at the end of that qualifying session. We'll see as we load into this mock race actually what the conditions are saying ahead of this one. Well, would you look at that? Barely a cloud in the sky. So that should be mimicked in the race to come after this. So we should expect a dry race unless the conditions take a dramatic turn during the course of the 36 laps. So looking forward to the race. It is one with monstrously powerful DRS and slipstream down that main straight once again. And you mentioned this as we were previewing this race during last week's broadcast. The double DRS, so the detection point which is in the last sector, works for both the run towards turn 1 and at the second chicane at turn 4. How does that affect the way that you have to race this? Because it does give an advantage, you would think, to the car that overtakes into the first corner because it's harder to counter when you don't have the DRS to come back.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I've long been a critic of this double DRS zone on this circuit in particular, because there's a couple circuits maybe where it makes sense, like Hungary. It makes sense because if you get past into turn 1, there's not really any place to put another activation point. Because it's just one hairpin and then immediately another DRS zone. So where does the activation point go? So I understand there, but Mexico, you've got turns 1, 2, and 3. You can put it somewhere, surely, maybe on the exit of 3. You can put a detection point and have another DRS zone because it just doesn't promote racing. If you get past into turn 1, there's no way to get back unless you have a significant ERS advantage. The slipstream helps, of course, but the DRS is such a big advantage that you really have to go for a dive into turn 4 to make anything of it if you've been overtaken into turn 1. So, yeah, it does have a big effect, and watch for what I would say is you should watch for drivers playing a few DRS games, perhaps, in the stadium section. Or I think the activation point's just before that left-hander, so it's you may see some drivers deliberately slowing down, particularly towards the end of the race, to try and get DRS in a tactical place. So watch out for that.
To come off the back of that rant, I do have to agree with you though on the double DRS. I do think it is a little bit anti-racing. The DRS detection point is in the third to last corner, so keep an eye out for any drivers trying to use that to their advantage. So DRS, as is usually the case on these F1 games, playing a massive role in the race and making it very difficult for the race leader. Talking tyres for this race, the role that they could play, because if I'm not mistaken, Ghost, this is another circuit, well, yet another one on this game, that has seemingly invulnerable hard tyres that are so valuable over the race distance.
Yeah, it's a 25 lap race, and those hards will go the whole distance. It's like if there wasn't a mandatory pit stop, you would just take the hards and go the whole way, and it would be the fastest strategy. Um, so I would expect if there's an early safety car, everyone straight onto the hards all the way to the end. And I would be very surprised to see anyone start on the hards. That is what I definitely would say, because it's just uh, you get the advantage in the second stint, but it's just not enough. You lose so much time from the massive undercut, and especially since the hards aren't really that bad a tire compared to the mediums on this circuit, um, in terms of pace, and are much better in terms of wear. So yeah, it's tricky to really make that call to go on the hards to start off with. So I wouldn't expect much strategy variation here.
So I expect a standardized strategy for most of these drivers to follow. That race will be coming to you in just a couple of minutes' time once we get a custom grid set up and we can get forward into the race. While we have a bit of downtime, I will have a word for our sponsors for PSGL. PSGL is sponsored by GT Omega. The link to GT Omega is in the description down below. You can receive a 5% discount on all GT Omega products at checkout using the code PSGL. Likewise, we are sponsored by Sim Racing Centre. You can also go there using the link in the description. Make sure to check that out. SRC will provide you with all your setup and coaching needs on the F1 game. That has a 10% discount at checkout using the code PSGL. Make sure to check that out. So, we will look forward to this race. 36 laps of the Mexican Grand Prix circuit ahead of us, and the way this grid is set up is very intriguing in terms of the championship battle, because we can see that the championship contenders by and large had okay but not spectacular qualifying sessions, with Coolman, Finley and Leonardo finishing 7th, 8th and 9th in that session respectively, with a bit of work to do into this race.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially Coolman. He's been very good at picking up the pieces from races, and that's a crucial quality in champions. When things aren't quite going to plan, even for yourself, to be good at just keeping it consistent, keeping it on the road, and profiting when your rivals mess up, that is a key trait. So he might be looking to do that today if his quali pace is anything to go by. But to be honest, the gaps were so close that I would be expecting a long DRS train. And I think the key here is just going to be don't fall backwards if you're in the mid-pack, because then you're going to be in an even worse situation. And Coolman and Finley, I think, are going to be thinking about that. I'd just like to put a small word out about the constructors as well. I know we can't see the teams because we're in multiplayer cars, but it's currently Acid and Billy who lead on 79 points, but neither of them are here. So Coolman and his teammate, who also isn't here, also on 79 points. I think it's really interesting to see what Finley and Karafalidis can do here. They're 13 points behind at the moment in that constructors battle and have a massive opportunity to close the gap, especially with Karafalidis on the front row. And I think Finley is going to have the pace to make up some positions. So big day ahead for them.
Yeah, and Karafalidis getting up there on the grid is so important, because we have seen, I would say, for most of the teams, quite unbalanced point scoring between their two drivers. So having two drivers that can deliver a lot of points or have that opportunity here tonight could be so valuable. We look forward now to the Grand Prix, and as Ghost alluded to, we should be seeing most drivers starting on that medium tyre. Generally, I think the pit lap for medium to hard is around about lap 10. You want to get onto those hards fairly early and take advantage of that undercut, which can be so important. So keep an eye out for that, and if anyone decides to go against the grain and go on to the hard tyres. So we'll keep an eye on that as we just get loaded in ever so soon. Here we are. We get towards the Mexican Grand Prix, building up to 5 red lights. And they leave the grid in Mexico City from the front. It is CPI Fraser who leads away from Karafalidis then towards that turn 1, but the slipstream so powerful then. Great start from Spicer, picking up a bit of a slipstream then, looking towards the outside, but no room there. Fraser defending that inside line towards turn number 1 and converts the pole position. They all pinch towards the inside of the apex of turn 1. There's Leonardo and Joaquin were fighting it out for space. So difficult to get through, and cars are going sideways in the middle of that turn 1. There's been a huge car traffic jam down there, and they're all going side by side. Look at this, there's cars all over the road down there in turn 4. This could only end in tears, surely. There's 4 wide almost down there in the middle of 4. How on earth is no one backwards? But there's mixed fortunes for everyone down there. Sviatek at the back is just taking a back seat and watching all this unfold on front. This is absolute madness as they head into the middle sector. Finally things start to calm down, and I can try and get a look. Wards is up 10 places on this opening lap. Ghost, I don't know how to sum that up. There were just so many cars in such a small space.
Yeah, incredible start for Wards. That was all about just avoiding the carnage and being in the right place at the right time, and then taking advantage of it as Coolman is frustrated, and you can see why. He's down in 13th place. He got absolutely mugged down to turn 4 and on the exit of turn 4 as well. He's down in 13th, and he tried to go for a dive bomb on Joaquin into the stadium section and had a little bit of contact, but he's passed him now up to 12th as I believe we had a change at the front. Spies are up to P2 now, past Karafalidis, but we may not have DRS yet, but the slipstream is so powerful that we are still going to see very easy passes before the braking zone. But now on the next lap, the DRS will be enabled, and we're going to see groups of cars form because we've already got big gaps. 1.1 to Leonardo, between Leonardo and Franek, as we've got a retirement already and a safety car on lap 2. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. The retirement looks like it's in the pit lane, so I don't know why the safety car is out, but that is the situation we're in.
I don't think it's a safety car. I think that's Spyros' icon because he has a yellow car.
You're kidding me. Oh, God,
yeah. So that's what we're saying. So yeah, that is the order of the day.
I do apologise.
That's okay. No safety car. It's a very easy mistake to make, I believe, with these F1 World Cars. Looking forward, though, to the order of the day. We're watching down there with Raphael and Louis Baptiste going side by side through the stadium section. How on earth can he keep it straight? Heading through with 2 cars parallel, and Louis does get in front of Raphael, but nearly dropping DRS of Wards out in front. Kuhlman is trying to get his move on, get back up the order, drawing level with Raphael, looking up towards Louis and moving forward down that main straight. Up in front, Frank Deshoni and Karafalidis are fighting it out through turns 2 and 3, and Karafalidis has to cede another position then as Frank Deshoni moves up into that 3rd position. So good stuff from him. Leonardo and Fenley have managed to bridge across to that lead group, but the rest of the field have been left for dead. They're all on the same tyres then, medium starters. The only driver that didn't start on mediums was Chris Rebel, as Wards and Kuhlman are fighting it out. Kuhlman is on the warpath at the moment, heading around the outside of turn number 6, trying to take advantage, get a better exit and move up into 9th place, and does so. Joaquin's trying to follow through too and gets so, and Wards losing a couple of places after that incredible start, beginning to fall back into line at this stage. But that turn 1 has fractured the field. You've got Nick and Sieb in the middle as Louis picks up a penalty, but Nick and Sieb in the middle, a group of 6 now up the front, and the rest of the field behind then. So that start has really shaken things up, and everyone from Kuhlman downwards has got seconds and seconds to make up after the chaos of that start.
2 important bits of info here. The reason Wards is falling all the way back down again is because he has front wing damage, and indeed I think he's pitting to repair that now. It might even be a pit to retire, as we've got changes for the front. Spicer takes the lead of the Mexican Grand Prix for the first time so far, and Kuhlman as well. He has minor front wing damage. It shouldn't affect him too much, but according to the telemetry, he does have a little bit of damage. So I do wonder if he'll bother to repair that in the pits. He will do if there's a safety car, but otherwise I don't know. He's 2.5 seconds behind Nick and Sieb, and then a further 2 seconds behind the front pack, which is where he wants to be. So it has been a pretty dire start to this race for the championship leader, and well, he's had some very good luck the last few weeks, and well, we're starting to see, I think, that it doesn't last forever, but there's still 33 laps to go.
Finley and Leonardo made this front group critically, so they managed to latch on to these top 4, and so they'll be getting that free ride and sticking with them. Nick's picking up a penalty, and it's actually something that we've neglected to really mention so far. It is time penalties and the role that they can play in this race, particularly in that middle sector. Keeping it between the lines, very, very difficult to do, especially when you're pushing right to the limit in a mess of other very, very talented drivers. So that can work against you, and penalties could really shake up the order here at Mexico as we watch Nick and Sieb fading it out. Then it's just a nice standard DRS pass though down the main straight, and likewise with Joaquin and Kuhlman. Efficient passing is key here. You really need, if you're going to make that overtake, make it clean and don't cost them too much time, especially when we have gaps. And that group of Joaquin and Kuhlman especially, they are going to need to work together. It is imperative that they swap down that main straight, no fuss, and keep on moving forward, especially with that double DRS. It does mean that if you do make the passes efficient, you can gain quite a lot of time as opposed to just battling or even staying put. So making those passes and making them work is going to be so important as you want to try and close the gaps to the drivers in front.
Yeah, the other aspect of the double DRS is that it makes it hard for the driver who's been overtaken on that lap to stay behind, because the other driver gets another boost down towards turn 4. So the driver behind has really got to work in the rest of the lap to make up that time, to make sure they don't drop out of the DRS range. And it can mean a little mistake here and there on a single lap. If you make 2 minor mistakes, you're suddenly out of DRS, and you're suddenly out of the contention in the battle that you're in. So it can be very demanding, this circuit, in terms of consistency that you need, as we see the two IRTs and Kuhlmann and Joaquin swapping diligently once again, and I think we'll see plenty of that as they continue to try and catch up. But Sieb and Nick not really catching those top 6, but Kuhlmann and Joaquin, that gap has come down by at least half a second since I last looked to the two IRTs. So Sieb and Nick will be in a little bit of trouble soon if this carries on.
Finley had a little look at Carafalidis heading in towards turn number 4. Didn't quite get through, but certainly on the look and to try and move forward. Leonardo behind will be thinking the same, I imagine, as they continue to plug on this medium stint. Now, you mentioned that gap coming down from P8 to P9. Kuhlmann is nearly there, nearly back in DRS range. Sieb and Nick just haven't quite had the raw speed of the other drivers around them, and that has meant that I would say this group of Kuhlmann is actually the fastest moving group on the circuit. So these guys going along very, very nicely, closing up at Kuhlmann, not quite in DRS yet, weaving along a little bit down the straight. Joaquin, I imagine, will make that pass towards turn 1. They continue to almost relay. You can see them heading down the main straight, Nick and Sieb doing the same further up the road. Joaquin moving through on Kuhlmann, so you're getting that kind of swapping and changing going on. And despite what you said with the double DRS, it hasn't really punished the second drivers in the train just yet. Fraser and Spicer, just like they did in Jeddah, have been able to sustain those first 2 places, and likewise with Joaquin and Kuhlmann in that third group. So they've managed to make it work as it stands, but you wonder later on in the race when that third driver is going to start to get a bit more aggressive, a bit more opportunistic, as to whether that could play a role, and that driver that gets overtaken into turn 1 by the leader could come under a lot more pressure.
Yeah, Joaquin going off there at the first S. I do wonder if that would be a track limits warning. But yeah, you're right. They've done well so far of keeping within that range. But Kuhlmann just a little bit lower on the ERS front than Joaquin. So he's got to be careful here. You use a bit too much ERS and suddenly you're in a bad spot. And he makes a mistake into stadium there, loses a couple tenths. And it's 8 tenths now between him and Joaquin. But they have caught the 2 cars in front, crucially. So they're going to have the DRS, and this train is going to lengthen now, slash into the pit lane further back. But you're saying this this train of Joaquin, Kuhlmann, etc. was the fastest moving set of cars on the grid, and you're absolutely right. The times did agree with you. They were doing high 16s, whereas even the front pack were doing low 17s. So they're certainly motoring along, but at the moment they're really under pressure. 3.5 seconds now is the gap between 6th and 7th. And, well, Kuhlmann, I think, is going to be hoping for some drama here at some point in this race, because he's had his fair share of drama already on lap 1. So, yeah, he needs some more to happen further ahead to get himself back in this one. Otherwise, he's going to lose quite a bit of his championship lead as it stands.
I do wonder how much that damage is affecting him, because he's struggling more and more to hold Joaquin heading through that middle sector. And Joaquin now, you sense that he has the most pace out of this midfield pack, but he needs to try and make these moves and make them fast behind Nick and Sieb. Otherwise, that group to the leaders is only going to extend. So heading out of the penultimate corner, and actually, these guys are all going to dive to the pit lane at the end of lap number 8. So Nick, Sieb, Joaquin, they all come in. Kuhlmann extends as well as the remainder of that train. So these guys guys are avoiding an undercut and maybe trying to claw back some seconds to the group in front as well, as the leader is actually going a bit side by side heading through turn 1. Fraser still in front of Spicer. Spicer though with that DRS heading down towards turn 4, moving up to the outside, and you'd say it's not particularly friendly. They're going to be side by side on the brakes, and they are going to go to battle here on lap number 9. To the outside, Spicer gets in front of Fraser, and Fraser wise to yield that one. Frantic Shorney looking opportunistic, nearly runs into the back of the man in front. Oh, and there's a bit of a concertina effect heading into turn number 6. I hope no one came away with damage from that, but they all got very, very close to that very, very slow double apex right-hander, as Wards has elected to end his evening retiring in the pit lane, bringing in 2 proceedings. But that was unusual so early in the race to see the race leaders, when you can pass solidly down the straight with DRS, or at the very least just waiting behind, they go to battle. There's no love lost from Jeddah between those two.
Yeah, absolutely not. 4.7. The gap did come down a little bit to Coolman. It's come down a lot more there. Wow, what a little bit of what a corner that was from Coolman. He gained about 4/10 on the leaders. Fraser and Leonardo both in. Coolman stays out. Interesting. I do wonder if he's going to repair that damage when he does come in. But Leonardo and Fraser going for the undercut. Where are they going to be in relation to Nick here, who's coming through the final sector now? Spicer and Frantic Jashorny having a little bit of a battle further up as well. But here comes Nick around the final corner. Leonardo and Fraser just exiting the pit lane. And I think that gap's going to be a lot smaller than it was thanks to that undercut. Leonardo just less than 3.5 seconds ahead of Nick. So yeah, it's come down by about a second, Daka.
Yeah, so that undercut, very, very crucial. Those hards working very well just out of the box. So a really big lap for both Fraser and Leonardo. Nick and Joaquin in behind will try and work their way through towards it. But yeah, they did gain a little bit more time. Oh, you can see Joaquin getting very close to the back of Nick, heading in towards turn number 4. But 3 seconds, Joaquin, you sense he had very, very strong race pace. At least he did on the mediums. Don't know about the hards, but work to do in this stint to try and chase down the men in front. And really, if you look at the body language, or well, I should say the car language of these guys, as they all come in from the lead group now, Frantic, Spicer, Finlay and Karafalidis, they were really scrapping in these last couple of laps, and you sense that if the group behind work together, they may be able to really get themselves back in, as we've got a very busy pit lane at the end of lap 10, putting on those hard tyres now, so we get reset into the second stint of this race by and large. Chris Rebel, the only driver to start on the hards, is the one to stay out. Spicer does get in front of the rest of the train, but you can see coming down the main straight, Fraser and Leonardo, they're going to jump these guys, and they may be out of DRS actually, so Spicer re-emerges. He is out of DRS of Fraser and Leonardo. That undercut's so important. They come out just over a second back. He's got a lap fresher tyres, he's got to get them working soon, but that, you can see how powerful that undercut is at a couple of very important laps ahead for NLR Spicer.
Yeah, I'm surprised so many drivers got caught out by that undercut from Leonardo and Spicer there, or Leonardo and Fraser rather. I did think that a lot more drivers would come in at that point, but no, they decided to keep it out, and they've paid the price. 1.1 seconds. It is close, and all Spicer needs is a small mistake from Leonardo or absolutely brilliant second sector here, which he is doing. 1.0, it's coming down, but isn't going to come down fast enough. He doesn't have the DRS here, and he's got barely any ERS left. Leonardo in a great position here, but goes wide at that right-hander, and that could hand Spicer DRS back into the stadium section. 1.0 as they go past the activation point. No, Spicer doesn't have it, and that could be critical as he makes a mistake out the final corner, desperate to get back on terms with those two in front, but he hasn't been able to do it, and this could be the break that Fraser and Leonardo need to start controlling this race now. Look at that gap go up and up. 1.6, 1.7 keeps going, and it's going to keep on going up down towards turn 4 as well.
Yeah, without DRS, without ERS, you are just helpless against these race leaders then. Leonardo getting that pull along from Fraser, and Fraser, the pole setter, well, we know he's got pace. Spicer is in such a precarious position. Frantic Jashorny, who actually dropped out of DRS briefly, trying to stay with him now. So the field is fracturing, and, well, Fraser pulling along Leonardo, that is a very menacing prospect indeed. So let's see how this is going to unfold. Frantic versus Spicer, that's a battle for DRS, and you can see how the undercut is brought brought Joaquin, Nick, Sieb right back into play here. They are with it then. Slash as well. But Finlay and Kuhlmann, in fact, Finlay, did he stack in the pits? Because he has lost so much time in that pit phase. And I think it must have been a double stack because he was running with the leaders. Granted, stayed out longer than most. But that's a major blow. And you'd have to say for Kuhlmann, who's had a difficult evening up to this point, bit of good fortune coming his way is Finlay now, who had, well, a similarly tumultuous race in Jeddah, which somehow ended with a P2. Very tough situation for him, and both the top two in the championship out of the points at the moment.
Yeah, I think Finlay has been on the unlucky side of a double stack in pretty much every race I've commentated for BSF3 so far. He's been so unlucky in that pit lane, and well, yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. It must have done. Either that or we picked up some damage somewhere and we didn't notice, but I don't think that's the case. So Finlay, a lot of work to do now. He needs a bit of drama as well in this race, as a little bit of mistake from Leonardo could get Spicer a couple tenths, and it has done. 1.2. It is still close, but Spicer needs to get within that range to really take the challenge to those two in front, because at the moment they're fairly comfortable ahead of him, but you know, Spicer, we know how fast he is. We know how fast he was in qualifying last week as well, and you can never count him out, even when he doesn't have this DRS advantage.
1.4 seconds is the gap. Leonardo hasn't come through to take over from Fraser at any point so far. I think he's just trying to stay with the man in front. None of these drivers, actually apart from Fraser, are very good on ERS. Fraser actually has quite a substantial amount, so he's managed that very nicely. Leonardo just trying to keep pace, and it's down this main straight that is so punishing for NLR Spicer. He may need some help from Vanek Deshorny, who is coming up towards him now, and maybe can get a bit of a turn from the pole. Can he make his way through towards turn number 4? Doesn't seem that way at the moment. Going to get that bit of DRS, but no, I think he's going to remain in behind, and that will go for the rest of the drivers in the train as well. As at 3 seconds behind that, Kuhlmann, Finlay and Louis now together on the road, and well, these two are, as Louis has a look at Finlay, doesn't go through in the end, but yeah, Kuhlmann and Finlay now have been forced into a sense of cooperation, you sense. Well, maybe Kuhlmann will be okay with both of them not picking up too many points, but I think they will, more than anything else, want to get up towards the group in front. Kuhlmann and Finlay being pegged back in this race, and a good opportunity for Leonardo, you'd have to say, who's running in a net P2 to pull back some points, and after missing the last couple of rounds, this situation for Kuhlmann and Finlay has played right into Leonardo's hands, following, you would say, the fastest man on the track, being dragged along, and in a perfect position as Kuhlmann picks up a penalty. It's just going from bad to worse for those two.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, well, I think one thing to draw our attention to now is, well, first of all, Vanek Deshorny getting past Spicer for P4. So perhaps they're going to start working together now to try and catch those two in front. But also, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago in Japan, Joaquin acting as an agent of chaos to sort of bring the chasing pack back into range of the leaders. And this time it might be the turn of Chris Rebel to do that, but I think he's well within his right to do that. Joaquin was very much just completely out of his mind to do that. It didn't help his own race at all, but Chris here, he's on the hard tyres that he started on, so he's perfectly within his right to stay out this long. It's just how his race is going, and well, 1.7 is the gap to Fraser, and I do wonder if he's going to slow them down at all here. It's 1.5 is the gap to Vanek Deshorny, and is Fraser going to get the DRS here? No, and that's critical because he is now likely going to get slowed down in that middle sector once he catches the current race leader. And this could be good news for Vanek Deshorny and Spicer, who look like they're going to swap places again.
Yeah, they're being nice and efficient down that main straight. Leonardo moves through on Fraser too, getting that big boost from the DRS, and these two now start to swap and change, as also Karfalidis may be looking interested in trying to take away that 5th place from Vanek Deshorny. Remains back for now, as there was contact there on the exit of 3 between Fraser and Leonardo, but Leonardo being dragged up by that DRS, but they're going to catch the race leader at a very tough point on the track there, and there's no obvious overtaking points. Can he get it towards turn 7? He needs a phenomenal run 1, but gets a bit of entry oversteer into turn 6. And no, there's no way through at the moment. There is DRS into the third sector, but through this middle sector, he's going to get held up and held up badly. And this is the break that Spicer was looking for to get back towards those top two, and he's doing exactly that. Back in DRS range, he is rewarded for perseverance as Spicer, as Leonardo lines up the move and towards turn 12. Oh, he backs out of it though. He's not near enough, and he has to wait even longer. Spicer is right back in this as Chris Rebel all over the road, getting it snapped up, gets a 10-second penalty as he goes completely over the inside of turn 14, goes to the pit lane, and the race has come back together. It is a group of 2 to a group of 10. Chris Rebel immediately retires. What on earth is going on there? As now Fraser draws level down the main straight. Spicer picking up that slipstream then, as Fraser will move through, but they've both got DRS, of course, because of Chris Rebel, so they hit the braking zone of turn 1 together. Still side by side, Leonardo backs off in the middle of T1. Spicer now with them, with the opportunity to get back, but every single car in this train is going to have DRS on the run towards turn 4. Spicer trying to take advantage. He's on the outside of Leonardo. Whoa. They touch on the entry, and Spicer has to get out of it. He was squeezed right to the outer reaches of the track. Frantic Jashorny was looking around trying to take advantage of that. Chris Rebel, well, you mentioned he may be an agent of chaos. He's done exactly that, bizarrely retiring after bringing the entire race back together. Complete reset, almost like a safety car. Fraser and Leonardo, that lead wiped out. They will be furious with the recent turn of events.
I'll be furious with Chris Rebel in particular. I think he might be getting some angry messages later. But we're talking about the racing now, and Spicer is back in it, as well as Frantic Jashorny, Karafulidis, Joaquin, Nick, Sieb, Slash. It's a 9-car train for P1 at the moment. This is fantastic stuff. And well, I've noticed over the last sort of 8 laps or so, Leonardo's biggest weakness on this track in comparison to the drivers around him is turns 1, 2 and 3. He is so much slower than everyone around him consistently at those corners. It's around about 2 or 3 tenths he loses every single lap. And look at this again, Spicer gains so much time through those first 3 corners, and if there's going to be a move made between Spicer and Leonardo, it is going to be down towards turn 4 for that exact reason, I think.
And those are probably the most important corners on the entire track for racing. It's a hot spot, first of all, with that run towards T1 with DRS. So if you're not confident there, you can lose out in the wheel-to-wheel battles. And as you said, it sets you up poorly for the run towards turn 4. So, that was very obvious there, as Spicer almost hit the back of Leonardo. He's so much slower than everyone else through there. It's very bizarre. But Spicer himself is under pressure. Frantic Jashorny is very close, but Spicer just blips that overtake button and holds on. Moving up through the train so far in this race has proven virtually impossible up to this point. We've seen constant swapping from the top 2 in trains, but almost nothing further back. Of course, as we tick down the laps and we get closer and closer to the end and the aggression levels get turned up, that could change. But at the moment, the swaps seem to be reduced towards the race leaders. But yeah, Leonardo, I think in general, is just lacking a bit of raw pace. So you'd say he's found himself in a great position here, in second place in the train. But Spicer is going to want to try and apply that pressure. Let's see. Towards turns 2 and 3, Spicer gets a good exit. Leonardo, a little bit of oversteer, but I think Spicer is still playing it cool and not being overly opportunistic. He's not using the ERS to create an overtaking opportunity, so he sees a move potentially, but he's not willing to take the risks just yet.
Yeah, big championship implications here as well for Leonardo in particular, but also Frantic Jashorny in this train. They both have a huge opportunity to absolutely cut into that championship lead for Coolman, who's currently sitting in P10, a net P11 after penalties. So he might be out the points altogether in this race. And again, look at that speed for Fraser out of the S's. Leonardo just not quite as good. And he's, I think out of these top 4, Leonardo is on raw pace, perhaps the slowest, but he's in a good position at the moment and he's making the most of it, as Spicer, a little bit of rear locking into that final corner is going to cost him down towards turn 1. But I would say if I was going to have a weakness at the circuit, it was between the final corner and turns 1, 2 and 3. I'd prefer turns 1, 2 and 3, but look at this, could be 3 wide towards turn 1. Spicer backs out of it, but Leonardo down the inside of Fraser into turns 1, 2 and 3. 3, and he's going to get the DRS out of 3 down to 4. But is he going to regret this, I wonder? He could come under huge pressure down towards turn 1, and I can foresee perhaps a double overtake on Leonardo down towards turn 4 if he once again gets a poor exit out of 3 on this lap, on the next lap rather.
We're battling further down the field too. Joaquin and Carfalidas went to Waller further down the order, and Nick tried to take advantage on Carfalidas, who was attacking Frank Deschorny at the beginning of the lap, but going backwards after that. So Leonardo now leads, Fraser in following. You can see Spicer trying to apply that pressure, and Fraser and Spicer are once again out together on the circuit. So Leonardo does lead the way. He's managed this race beautifully up to this point, despite, you would say, not having the best raw pace in the train, but it does mean he's there to be shot at, and gets a couple of snaps of oversteer out of that final corner too. So punching onto the main straight then, Fraser picking up that slipstream, opening up that DRS. He is in a position to retake that race lead, and I do believe he is going to do so. Coming up towards T number 1, they are going to be side by side coming in though, and here comes Spicer to the inside of turn number 1. Is he going to get 2 in 1? They swap Leonardo. Fraser holds on around the outside, but Spicer, beautifully done, gets on the inside and forces Leonardo out of line. Now he's looking for the race lead, doesn't go for it, decides to remain behind Fraser as Leonardo tries to cover off the drivers behind. Joaquin moving to the outside of Frank Deschorny, trying to get another place. He's squeezed wide by Frank, but he stays in there. Frank runs all the way off the road. Carfalidas is also looking at Joaquin, who still stays in there in the turn 6. There's more contact. It's getting bad tempered down there as Frank does hold on in front of Joaquin, but they were bumping and barging between the two of them there, and Frank was ended up off the circuit. Stays ahead of Joaquin and now having to work hard to stay with the group in front. Gets a 10-second time penalty for corner cutting and gaining a place. Well, that may be removed because from my perspective he was forced off the road, but he puts in a good run through turn number 12 to get back towards it. Does he have DRS from Leonardo in front? The answer to that is yes. So Frank Deschorny survives a barrage, gets a penalty, but I do believe that will be removed. But you're seeing, I said earlier a few laps ago, we're not seeing overtakes further down the train, but these drivers now are picking out their opportunities. Spicer, I think, is going to move through on Fraser towards turn number 1. Oh my goodness! It's in the middle of the road. That is the car of Moy Cooley, I believe, and the drivers are all having to swerve out of the way towards turn number 1 to get around that AI car. I'm trying to hand over to you, Ghost, but it is absolutely manic out there on the circuit. Spicer leads away from Fraser. Leonardo towards turn number 4, trying to move up on the outside. They touch on the entry. Leonardo trying to go all the way around the outside, inside at turn number 5. They bang wheels yet again, but Leonardo gets Fraser offline and gets through into position number 2. Please take over, Ghost. I've been looking for an opportunity, but Leonardo now runs P2.
Well, Leonardo, I did say that he might regret that move for P1 and he might get double overtaken. That's exactly what happened. I do think there's a tad bit of setup difference here. I think Leonardo has has some quite high, well, not quite high, but a little bit higher wings than those around him, and his straight line speed isn't quite as strong as, for example, Spicer, who now leads this race by 0.6 of a second. Leonardo will have the DRS though, and he is going to in theory be able to defend from Fraser. 0.3 I don't think is close enough unless Fraser decides on using all his battery to get past. The slipstream is quite a bit, but none of them interested in using any ERS at this stage. They just want to save it for the last few laps. As wow, big contact further back. Joaquin trying to get through and running Carafalidis off the road at turn 2 and 3, and that could be a bit of red mist descending down there.
Oh my goodness.
It's definitely red mist. Yep. No, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. And I think Joaquin's going to be a lot of trouble for that one. We have a virtual safety car. So opportunity for everyone to calm down a bit. Not least Joaquin. But I think he is long past the opportunity to calm down. And that's big news for Finley and Coolman as well. They're going to gain a couple of positions out of that. Let's just leave it at incident. So Coolman up into the points now, so he will at least manage to salvage something from this race, but Finley 2 places higher, so he'll get a little bit more, and well, Coolman's still in a bad spot, but yeah, he'll at least be pleased to not get absolutely nothing out of this one.
We're not advised to comment on incidents or the outcome, but I do think that one sort of wrote itself. And to top it off for Joaquin, retirement on the circuit, on track, I should say, after, having an incident with Carfalitis. Yes, we'll leave it at that. So we get back to green flag racing, and immediately Leonardo draws level with Spicer on the run towards turn number 1. They hit the brakes as one. Spicer yields that one on the inside of T1. Leonardo goes to the lead. Can Fraser take advantage though? Spicer will not have the DRS, but he's not using the battery yet, Fraser, so he's still content to sit in that third place. Or is he? He takes a little look to the inside but remains in there. Franek, who managed to just about escape from the chaos behind him with these guys. Nick is again having to work hard to stay with the group in front, as is Sieb to him. But Sieb, you could say, could be taking advantage of the penalties of the drivers in front, although you could say Franex you'd expect to get removed later on. So Sieb, though, looking good at the moment for a potential top 5. Nick, who has impressed so far on debut, up with the leaders, but with you would say it's hard to look past these top 3 at the moment unless we have another dramatic incident at the end like we had in Jeddah. But Leonardo, you'd have to say he's going toe-to-toe at the moment with Spicer and Fraser. And Fraser, I think, had a bit of a moment through the last sector, then nearly dropping out of DRS and under pressure from Franek.
Yeah, big mistake. He locked the rears into that left-hander of the stadium section and lost maybe 5/10. But he is still in the DRS, crucially. Franek just behind, but not willing to go for a move at this stage. But yeah, it's still a close run thing between these top 6-7 drivers, all still in this train. I mean, we did have that incident, and it was a 9-car train, so you might have expected if with 2 cars getting out of the way, but here we go for the lead of the race. As I was talking, Spicer and Leonardo, a bit of contact between them, the 2 green cars, no love lost between them as Spicer gets his way back ahead, but Leonardo will be definitely looking to take that race lead. He's going to think about a race win here, because that gap to, again, I have to mention the championship, that gap to Coolman is not all that much anymore if it ends like this. So Leonardo definitely has a race win in mind. It's a huge difference between P2 and P1 here. So very much looking forward to see how this ends. Fraser in the mix, Franek, Jashorny and Nick, though, the big losers out of this train. They've both got track limits penalties, although I do have to say, I feel like I disagree with you, Daka, on whether Franek's penalty will be removed. I know we're told not to talk too much about this, but I think it's okay if we disagree. As Fraser, the top 2 again swapping positions, Leonardo down the inside of Spicer. But yeah, I wouldn't take Franek's getting his penalty removed completely for granted, is all I would say.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that as Leonardo backs off, and Fraser looking towards the outside of turn number 4. That was very unusual, as Slash has dropped off of timing screens for me. He's still at the back of this train. He has found himself in that position, I think, many times this season, but are you seeing the same? Slash is now P12 for me. I don't understand this.
Yeah, I think that's some lag. He will probably jump back up on those timing screens later. I think that is EA Sports, it's in the game. A little bit there. So yeah, I'm sure he is still there, and there we go. It's jumped straight back up on the timing screens. So yeah, a little bit of lag for Slash, and well, 1.1 seconds is the gap. But to be honest, I'm not going to trust any gap between Slash and Sieb at the moment. He is lagging that much. It is quite bad on my screen. I don't know about you, but yeah, those top 7 still locked together. But look who is catching up. 1.6 seconds now between Coolman and that train ahead, and Finley is going to be looking at that gap especially. He's the only one of these 3 with no penalty as they all go side by side. Finley onto the grass as he tries to go around the outside and make a double overtake. Louis just forces him wide a little bit, but Finley took the gap. He saw it and he went for it. He's going to get the DRS again, but so is Louis. They're going to go side by side again to turn 4. Finley, is he going to break late for this corner? Doesn't dare to do it as Louis covers him off, but goes for the switchback on the exit. Turn 5 this time, that is definitely getting forced off for Finley, and I don't know how happy he's going to be about that one, but he is still just about behind. And look at the gap, it's gone back up to 2.5 with all that battling. So Finley not going to be happy with all that battling, I would imagine, but he's still in with a shout here because of Franek and Nick's penalties. So Finley could get himself 2 free positions if they can catch up a little bit more to that train ahead.
Louis' car is all over the road, rear locking into every single corner at the end of this lap, so Finley is gonna need to try and move through and get it done fast. Well, you said he was looking at the gap, but driving on the grass to set up that move towards turn 1, I'm not sure if I'm inclined to believe with that one, but Finley, he must have to try and work towards him. It's a 3-way for the lead, look at this, heading up towards turn number 1, it's Leonardo, it's Spicer, it's Fraser, Fraser backs off on the inside of turn number 1, Leonardo sweeps through in front of Spicer, so it's getting ever more heated at the front. They are beginning to get ever closer to each other. How is this going to unfold? The laps are ticking down here in Mexico City. Behind, Coolman has jumped to the front of the train for P number 8, gets in front of Finley, and Louis will try and pull these guys along again. Coolman and Finley in a bit of an uneasy alliance, you could say, having to work together. A bit of contact through T6, maybe it's not such an alliance, but they have to work up towards it. Coolman, 2.2 seconds. These guys, they've shown phenomenal pace, it must be said, in this second stint. They have fresh tyres, they're working well, but the question is, especially with Coolman's penalty, will they just run out of laps? Coolman makes a small mistake through 11, and Finley will duly take advantage into the final sector, and Coolman wisely backs out of that one. So Finley moves to P8. They're working well, they're going very quickly, but I think getting up towards those top drivers and challenging them is going to be a very tall order in these closing laps.
Yeah, an uneasy alliance is a great way to put it. I imagine them glaring at each other in the cockpits as they go past down towards turn 1. But it is Finley who currently leads that train, and crucially, again, with no penalty, but Coolman is going to get him back towards turn 1, and there we go, Coolman up to P8 again. But it's that gap to Nick and Franek, I think, is going to be the main thing Finley is focusing on. I think unless those top 7 really start battling hard, as well, as I say that, the top 2 go wheel to wheel into turn 4. Spicer just ahead, but Leonardo now under pressure from Fraser on the inside of turn 5, but he can't quite make it work. Leonardo stays ahead, and I have to say, Leonardo has defended very, very well so far this race, and it's been a very established drive from the man currently sitting in P3 in the championship, but if it stays like it is, he will be P2 by the end of this race. But he's still going to be hungry for that race win. He knows there's a chance of it, but everyone in this train, apart from Franek and Nick, also know that there's a chance. So Fraser, Leonardo and Spicer in the driving seat at the moment, but if anything happens, it's going to not only bring the cars behind in this train into the battle, but it's going to bring Finley, Coolman and Louis into it as well, but especially Finley with no penalty.
One thing is for sure, they are not racing all out yet, but Franek is burning a lot of ERS down the main straight to challenge Fraser as Leonardo goes to Spicer for the race lead, and they go 2 by 2 on the entry towards turn number 1. How could this unfold? Spicer lunges Leonardo into turn 2, gets in front, and Nick slots straight through Franek to Shawnee, and is he going to get Fraser too? Oh my goodness, Nick, what a piece of opportunistic driving, gets in front of CPI Fraser. IRT Nick taking full advantage of these guys finally going all out on the run towards turn 1. That was beautifully done, and now runs, okay, granted has a penalty, but in the podium place is on track. What a great piece of driving that was, and now staring down the race leaders. He doesn't have as much battery, and that is what I was going to mention before these guys started battling, is that they were saving their battery, especially Spicer and Fraser, but Fraser, you'd have to say that strategy seems to have backfired. Now runs in position 4, 3 cars down from his main rival from the last couple of rounds, Spicer. He's trying to line one up into turn 13, doesn't do it, but Fraser, that conservative strategy not quite working versus aggressive, hard charging racing from the drivers behind.
What a way to announce yourself to PSF3. IRT Nick, fantastic double overtake, and it could be more for him here. He's right behind Leonardo, and well, he was gaining, but I think he just decided to back off there about halfway down the straight, so sitting behind again. But here comes Fraser down the inside. He's not willing to back off anymore. Here he goes around the outside of turn 2, the inside for 3, and it's a great move from Fraser to retake that podium position on track. Nick is going to be back at him to turn 4, but I don't think he's got anything in the tank to do it, and Fraser stays ahead. So great move from the man now back up to P3, and he's going to be challenging Spicer and Leonardo once again. And I do have to point out, despite them sharing exactly the same car colours, Spicer and Leonardo not in the same actual team in the constructors, so there's no team play going on between them at all. It is hard racing, and Leonardo is going to have the DRS again down to turn 1, and the laps are falling away very quickly now. 5 laps to go at the end of this one, and we're going to start seeing some desperate moves. But look who's in the train, Daka. Finley, 0.9 behind. He's in DRS, and Finley could be on for a top 6 finish if it stays like this, thanks to the penalties ahead. But he will hope for more. If he can get past Slash and Sieb, it could be top 4 for the man who looked like he might not even get points today.
What a charge it has been for E.F.E. Finley, but is there enough laps? As you said, we are inside the final 5. Out of turn number 3 for the race leaders, then Nick is still looking not but overawed by his presence of the drivers around him, challenging hard, as is Leonardo, but Leonardo breaks early to T4, and Fraser is round the outside, runs out of space though, trying to create some space for himself at turn 5, and it gets heated down there. Nick as well, swarming away for a way through, but somehow they all stay in the same order and they reset heading in to the S's. The tension rises ever higher. So Spicer from Leonardo, from Fraser, the top 3 has been the top 3 for the vast majority of this Mexican Grand Prix. Fraser is trying to find a look in towards the top 2, and Spicer and Leonardo are trying to maintain a sense of utopia at the front of this race, but Fraser has so much battery to use, even relative to the top 2, but that battery is going to have to be burned in the laps to come. Fraser staring down Leonardo. Leonardo did not have a good run through the last few corners and is actually out of 1 second. Does he have DRS to use down the main straight? The answer to that is yes, just about managing to hang on in then, but I think Fraser is looking ever closer. Here comes CPI Fraser towards the inside of turn 1, gets in front, brakes later, gets the move done. Fraser with a critical move on Leonardo, and Frantic Shawnee trying to follow through too. He's side by side with Nick through turns 2 and 3. They managed to keep it together on track, but Nick runs wide, and Sieb now is in the ascendancy, trying to carve a way through for himself. Has to back off though, as Frantic does get through on Nick, as Sieb gets it all crossed up. Was he hit from behind? I'm not sure, but he was sideways in the braking zone there. There was contact too between Finley and Slash. Slash moved up on the inside, Sieb trying to stay in there, and Poggy his nose on the inside is Louis, who makes contact with IRT Sieb. Sieb is falling right down the order here, and Louis is round the outside of turn 7. They touch, and Sieb is sideways and collects Coolman. Coolman runs into Sieb after he was sent into a half spin after the contact with Louis, and the championship leader has even more damage than Alar Coolman. It has been a nightmare race for the man who had such a commanding lead in the standings. Falls down a couple of places. In the end, it's been a horrible evening for him, but that was cars fighting for possession then through a very difficult point in the track, and well, as we headed to the final 3 laps of the race, the aggression was going to get turned up, and I think an incident like that was always likely.
Yeah, and Coolman finally getting some rotten luck in this race today. Spicer and Fraser still staying in order as Coolman and Sieb once again swap, but Leonardo in there as well. Frantic, Shawnee and Nick still with those penalties. Frantic with a perhaps dubious penalty, but we'll update you on that next week, I'm sure. But the top 3 still close together, and Frantic outbreaks them all as they try and avoid going into the back of each other, and gains a few tenths as a result. But Finley now into P7. It's P5 net after penalties, and he'll be looking to get past Slash for P4, and who knows what else could happen in this race. We've already seen one incident between this front train that's now down to 7 cars, and could we see more as Finley goes a little bit wide at the S's there? He's got to be careful, because if he gets a penalty, that is his advantage wiped out from between himself and Nick in particular. So big upcoming final 2 laps for Finley, but I know what it's like as a driver to be fighting for the lead into the last few laps in a battle as intense as this. The heart rate will be through the roof, and the nerves are going to start to set in, and we're going to see more mistakes in these last few laps than we have seen elsewhere in the entire Grand Prix. Finley to the inside of Slash for P6. Is he going to make the move? He dives to the inside. Can he get it done on the exit? Yes, he can. Slash gets a poor exit, it, and Finley up to 6th place, and it's 4th after penalties.
Brilliant recovery drive from Finley, yet again, just like in Jeddah. We'll see if he can take advantage of any misgivings from the top three, because they're almost touching tip to tail heading through that section of the track, then through turns 4 and 5. So, just over a lap and a half to go. Spicer leads the way from Fraser. It's going to be another last lap showdown between these two, and they both have full batteries. Leonardo also nearly completely full on battery, and he can try and take advantage of any misfortunes for the top two, just like Kuhlmann did last week. He's very close to Fraser. Fraser half a second back from the race leader then, and he's not fully hooked up through this section of the track. He needs to nail these next couple of corners because Spicer is building a good advantage. Leonardo gets a penalty. Leonardo penalty heading through turn number 14. That's huge in this race. Leonardo lights up the rear tyres in frustration at a turn 16. Is that his winning charge done? Fraser is half a second back from Spicer, picking up the slipstream from distance. There's still a lot of gap to close before turn 1. Is Spicer going to hold on for this one? Fraser drawing ever nearer, but he's not near enough into turn 1 yet. Can he get the run towards turn number 4? The run out of turn 3 will be so critical for both these guys. Exit. It's good for Spicer. It's good for Fraser too. The slipstream now coming into effect. Towards the outside is going to have to be. And towards turn number 4. Fraser gets a nose in front. Spicer stays in there. They get into turn 5 now with Fraser on the inside.
Whoa.
And Spicer is sent sideways by side contact, but Fraser leads, and Spicer lights up the rear tyres again, heading through turn number 6. They both, there's contact, Leonardo to Spicer has gone spearing around, and yet again, it's a last lap incident. He's back into P6. But that is as Leonardo backs off. He's going to cede that position. Very good sportsmanship from Leonardo. He lets Spicer through. Fraser is going to move clear though as they scrap behind for minor possessions. But CPI Fraser, he resists. He made the move at the critical point into turn 4, and Fraser takes another race win. Wins it in Mexico. A brilliant second place for Yves Finley, and third place will go to NLR Spicer at the moment then, after being sent round by Leonardo. In the end, Leonardo, with that late penalty, has to settle for P6 after running in the podium positions virtually the entire race. Slash somehow ends up 4th. Nick, a great debut 5th from Leonardo, Seb, Frank, Shorney. Kuhlmann will run through the rest of the results later, but well, we knew that it was all going to come to a head on that final lap, and a great move from Fraser. There was contact down there, but personally, I did not see anything wrong with that. Maybe you see it differently, but of course, the contact between Leonardo and Spicer, that's not what we want to see, but I think that Fraser has earned that one.
Yeah, I was on board with Leonardo at when the contact happened. Spicer just lost the rear going into the S's. He was all over the place with the rear end throughout that entire middle sector, and Leonardo just couldn't avoid him. He went into the back of him. So very, very sporting of Leonardo to let him back through. It could be argued he didn't have to at all, but great. Sort of wanting to keep on the good side, I expect, of his rivals at this stage in the season. There's still plenty of rounds to go. But, yeah, fantastic drive from Finley. I do not know how on earth he has managed to get himself into second place when we're talking about maximum 8th, just 5 or 6 laps from the end. So, fantastic recovery from him. I'll let you run through the order, Daka.
Yep, so Fraser does take the win away from Finley. It says pole to flag, but it was anything but that. Finley takes away that second place from Spicer in P3. Slash, Nick and Leonardo round out that top 6 after that lengthy battle. Again, Leonardo, I was actually on board with Spicer, so I didn't see it from Leonardo's point of view, but yeah, very sporting to give up that position. CP7 from Franek, Kuhlmann, and Louis grabs the final point on debut. After that, we have Rafael and Zviadek rounding out all of the finishers, just 12 from that race after Joaquin and Karafalidis had their encounter. Moikulik, Chris Rebel, Wards, and Spyros were unable to see the checkered flag, so very high attrition rate for the Mexican Grand Prix. And, well, I guess you could say a winner that you could have predicted after qualifying, but the way it was achieved was anything but straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, it's Fraser now is proving himself to perhaps be a threat to this championship. We're obviously not deep into the second half, but we're a few races in now. And well, Fraser didn't have the greatest start to the season with one DNF and plenty of no-shows, but here he is, first, sixth, first for the last three. It's been a pretty good run, and he's going to be still quite a way off, but he needs just a little bit more bad luck for those ahead, and he's going to be right back in this battle. And well, to talk briefly about the championship, it's a second consecutive P2 for Finley and a disaster for Coolman. And by my count, that brings the gap from 18 points all the way down to 8. Going to the next four
Yep.
rounds. So we were talking about Coolman being the runaway championship leader. Not anymore.
Yeah, and well, you have to say that was Finley's perseverance that earned that one because
Yeah.
massively set off in that pit phase. He's confirmed in the chat it was a double stack, so same thing that happened in Jeddah. When is this man going to get a bit of good luck? But sometimes you make your own luck, and well, he's made his own luck in the second half of that race to claw back the points and get up towards Coleman. So those two have somewhat moved clear. Leonardo, it looked like at one point that he was going to take a huge haul of points away over the other two, but in actuality losing out to Finley in this round. As it stands right now, with no shows from Acid, Vita now going down to reserve, is it too early to say that the championship is coming down to a three-way fight between those guys?
It's it's perhaps a little early, I think. Leonardo, Finley, and Coolman certainly well up there now, and you know, you would say mathematically it's probably a three-way fight. But if Fraser can keep banging in these wins in these last four rounds, then he's going to be right up there as well, especially if there's some misfortune strikes for those top three. And, well, we've seen plenty of that for Coolman today. We've seen plenty of it for Finley as well, with two consecutive double stacks in the pit lane. So, it could all come down to the last couple rounds here. If Fraser can get himself back into this, it could be a four-way fight going into that last round. Franek is there or thereabouts, but yeah, he needs to do similarly to Fraser and get some big race wins in to try and claw that gap back. But yeah, I would say realistically, probably a top three battle now. But there's plenty of time yet.
I think the picture may well be a lot clearer after the next race.
Yeah.
That will be that at that point that will be three-quarters of the season done, and we're really into the business end of season 37 of PSF3 thereafter. So that next round will be coming to you from Spa. That will be the Belgian Grand Prix heading up next time. One of the most iconic circuits on the F1 calendar is ahead of us, and one that probably draws on a very different skill set to this one in Mexico. So we'll see how it unfolds. But, well, the established order, Fraser, you'd have to say, has been the man to beat in each of the last three rounds. Okay, last week did not end particularly well for him, but you said he's not out of the title fight, and on reflection, I do actually agree with you in that regard. But he's shown himself on so many different tracks in the last three rounds. You'd have to say that, well, from the next race in Spa, if he can pull another result there, then who knows? But as it stands right now, he seems to be the most consistent force at the front of the field.
Yeah, he certainly does, and it's going to be an interesting last few rounds. Four to go, and well, Coolman is not going to be happy with how this race panned out. But he's still in the lead. He's still 8 points ahead. It's still a pretty decent advantage. So he's just got to keep that consistency going and limit the bad races to today. Because everyone gets an unlucky race when they're going for a title. At some point, it's bound to happen, and He just needs to keep it clean. I think the main part of this race where it all went wrong was lap one. He just got completely mugged down towards turn four. I was riding on board, and he just got swamped all the way round, and on the exit as well, and just lost a ton of positions. And there's not really too much he could do about it, but sometimes you've got to be in the right place at the right time, and he wasn't. So is he's got some work to do to regain that confidence in himself after a bad result. But all he needs is one strong result again, and I think he's once again going to be back in the favourite position for this championship. But who knows? Plenty of time to go, and plenty of fantastic racing, and perhaps some drama as well at some points along the line.
Yeah, we've already had plenty of great racing, plenty of drama from the first 2/3 of the season. Keep an eye out for the rest of this championship next round. As I said earlier, it comes to you from Spa, but I think that is going to be just about it for this race here at the Circuito de Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. Once again, thank you to GT Omega and SRC for making PSGL possible and for allowing us to provide the action for you all tonight. So thank you all very much for tuning in for the 8th round of the championship from the Mexican Grand Prix. For myself and Ghost, it is goodbye for now, and until next time, we'll see you later.